Hey guys, Mike V from Reliable Automotive Equipment. Today we're going to be setting up the XPac for the rivet gun, working off of a power drill. Let's get started. All right, now we're going to assemble the XPac assembly. So on the inside part of here is going to match up with the drill chuck that goes in. So once we have that in, we're just going to tighten this up. And then we're going to take the red knob here, slide this piece back, and we're going to just snug this up against the drill chuck itself. And then we're going to put a little bracket here in the bottom just to kind of help keep everything together, stabilize it a little bit. Open this piece up in here. Get this around the battery. So before we tighten that up, we want to make sure that we're around the battery. We're just going to push these pieces in, snug them up a little bit so there's some friction there. And then we're just going to pull this back, snug that up, and that just helps everything keep nice and stable. So then we're going to put our C-arm on. And on the C-arm, this piece right here is going to line up with the piece that is in the C-arm so that it will lock into place. Before putting that in, we're going to have that so it's turned out of the way, and there's a little roll pin here that just sticks through a little bit the other side that is going to line up with this little groove right here. And what that does, that's going to orient the pin in line with one another. So once we slide everything on, we'll be able to close this shut so that everything will be fine on that. So when you first get this, and these are pretty well machined parts going together, it helps with just a little bit of air tool oil in here for the initial setting of getting on, and then just nice and easy going on. And once it starts moving, it rolls pretty decent. And then we're just going to move the C-arm till that drops down into that, and then that allows us to click that on, and now this is locked into place. So once we have that piece on, now we're going to set up some die assemblies. And what we have setting here is a set of 3mm self-piercing dies and a spacer. So the 3mm self-piercing, the one piece here has a little magnet in the center, and this is where the rivet is always going to set to place it on for setting the rivet. When we set these up, I can put the magnet side here, or I can put the magnet side here. Depending on how the rivet is going to be set into the panel, you can do either side. But there is a spacer involved that is always going to go on the piston side of it, unless you need to have an extra reach on the other side. But in generality, keep the spacer on the piston side. And an easy way of putting this together is putting this into here first, and you can see this is relatively loose. This has a little O-ring on it, and this is just going to help for a friction fit so that these dies don't accidentally come loosen. And when I put this in, I'm just going to keep turning this until it takes the slack out of this piece here. And when that's snugged up, this is one solid piece now, and this will go into the piston. And if you have a little issue with the O-rings going in there, you can put a little drop of air tool oil on it just to help it get past the opening. So I want to do everything hand tight because the pressure is designed to go on the end of the die assembly, not the threads. So if I don't have these hand tight touching their contact points, it is going to put all the pressure on the screw, and you will end up breaking the screw because this is a ultra high strength steel, and steel now has a great strength this way under compaction, but moving this way is very brittle. So by putting these in, we just want to make sure that these get snugged up like they're supposed to. So now that we have that snugged up in there, I can take my rivet into the assembly. And then, before we go to set the rivet, on this part of the gun, this is a KN gauge, kilonewton gauge for the pressure of the rivet. And this one should be set at 35. So now that we have that set up, we're going to go set a rivet in the plate. So when we go to set the rivet in the plate, we want to have the speed of the drill on the faster speed. We want around 1500 RPMs on that. And I'm going to put the rivet where I want to set it on the material instead of holding the back part here. Just make sure that either way that you do that, that you know where you're going to be setting the rivet. So when we run this in, so that little bit of sound difference where it seemed like it lost pressure, that's an automatic pressure relief valve in here. And either you lift this up or push it down. Your rivet is set. And on the self-piercing rivets, they should be flush mounted. And on the back side, that is actually the second panel that got pushed into the receiving die that formed the head on it. And it took the self-piercing rivet and splayed out the end of it, and now you have a very solid rivet on this point. All right, and now we put a set of dies in here for pushing out the self-piercing rivets. These dies can go on either way. I have this set up so that the piece that's going to push is actually going to go into the back of the rivet itself. Keep in mind, the direction that you push them in, you're going to push them out in the opposite direction. You always push on the back side of the rivet, not the front side. So this piece going in very easily into the back part of the rivet. And then the oversized hole on this piece here is going to allow the whole rivet to come out. Do the release. The rivet is here, and that is what it looks like with the rivet pushed out. If you do accidentally push through the front part of the rivet, you will actually take both pieces of the panel out in a big chunk. These can only come back out one way. Okay, guys, that concludes the setup of the XPac. If you have any questions or comments, your name and number is on the screen there. Give us a shout, guys. Have a great day. Thank you.